All right. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and welcome. We are back here again on Sunday. It is our Sunday. Yeah, they don't know why my stupid intro stuff just decided it was going to like double over and repeat twice. I'm like, no, we're not here for 10 minutes worth of listening to the same song over and over again. That is just not going to be our thing today. So, anyways, we are going to pick up where we left off in our reading of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Based on what we have left, we will finish this story out this evening. We will be done with that. So we are going to read until we hit the end, and then we will just see what it looks like. I see that there, Keisha. But yeah, so once again, no sound alerts, no anything else. Just you, me, and a quiet little book as we wind down the rest of this fabulous read from Douglas Adams, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. If you remember correctly, we left off with 42 telling us, with infinite majesty and infinite calm, that the answer to the great question of life, the universe, and everything was simply 42. So let's pick up where we left off at chapter 28. It was a long time before anyone spoke. Out of the corner of his eyes, folk could see the sea of tense, expectant faces down in the square outside. "We're going to get lynched, aren't we?" he whispered. "It was a tough assignment," said Deep Thought mildly.
42?
Squawked Lunqual.
Is that all you got to show for 7.5 million years?
"I checked very thoroughly," said the computer. "And that quite definitely is the answer. I think the problem, to be quite honest with you, is that you've never actually known what the real question is."
But it's the ultimate question. The ultimate question of life, the universe, everything.
Howled Lunqual. "Yes," said Deep Thought, with the air of one who suffers fools gladly. "But what actually is it?" A slow, stupefied silence crept over the men as they stared at the computer and then at each other.
Well, it's just everything. Everything,
offered Folk weakly. "Exactly," said Deep Thought. "So, once you know what the question actually is, you'll know what the answer actually means."
Oh, terrific,
muttered Folk, flinging aside his notebook and wiping away a tiny tear.
Look, all right. Can you just please tell us the question?
"The ultimate question."
Yes.
"Of life, the universe, and everything."
Yes.
Deep Thought pondered for a moment. "Tricky."
But can you do it?
Deep Thought pondered for another long moment. Finally, "No," he said firmly. Both men collapsed into their chairs in despair. "But I'll tell you who can," said Deep Thought. They both looked up sharply.
Who? Tell us.
Suddenly, Arthur began to feel his apparently non-existent scalp begin to crawl as he found himself moving slowly but inexorably forward towards the console. But it was only a dramatic zoom on the part of whoever made the recording, he assumed. I speak of none but the computer that is to come after me, intoned Deep Thought, his voice regaining its customary declamatory tones. A computer whose merest operational parameters I am not worthy to calculate, and yet I will design it for you. A computer that can calculate the question to the ultimate answer. A computer of such infinite and subtle complexity that organic life itself shall form the part of its operational matrix. And you yourself shall take on new forms and go down into the computer to navigate its 10 million year program. Yes, I shall design this computer for you, and I shall name it also unto you, and it shall be called the Earth. Folk gasped at Deep Thought. What a dull name, he said, and great incisions appeared down the length of his body. Lunqual, too, suddenly sustained horrific gashes from nowhere. The computer console blotched and cracked, the walls flickered and crumbled, and the room crashed upward into its own ceiling. Slarty Bartfrost was standing in front of Arthur, holding 2 wires. End of the tape, he explained. Chapter 29. Zaphod woke up. Wow! Hey, come on, wake up! Just let me stick to what I'm good at, yeah? Muttered Zaphod, rolled away from the voice and back to sleep. Do you want me to kick you? Said Ford. Wow, would it give you a lot of pleasure? Asked Zaphod blearily. Not really. Nor me. So what's the point? Stop bugging me, man. Zaphod curled himself up. You got a double dose of the gas, said Trillian, looking down at him. 2 windpipes. Stop talking, said Zaphod. It's hard enough to try and sleep anyways. What's the matter with the ground? It's all cold and hard. It's gold, said Ford. With an amazingly balletic movement, Zaphod was standing and scanning the horizon because that was how far the gold ground stretched in every direction. Perfectly smooth and solid, it gleamed like, well, impossible to say what it gleamed like because nothing in the universe gleams quite the same way that a planet made of solid gold does. Don't get excited, said Ford. It's only a catalog. A catalog? Said Trillian. An illusion. How can you tell that? Cried Zaphod, falling to his hands and knees and staring at the ground. He poked it, prodded it. It was very heavy. It was slightly soft. He could mark it with one of his fingernails. It was very yellow and very shiny, and when he breathed on it, his breath evaporated off in that peculiar, special way that the breath evaporates off solid gold. Trillian and I came around a while ago, said Ford. We shouted and yelled till somebody came in and then carried on shouting and yelling till they got fed up and put us in their planet catalog to keep us busy till they were ready to deal with us. This is a senso tape. Zaphod just stared at him bitterly. Oh, shit, he said. You wake me from my own perfectly good dream to show me somebody else's? He sat down in a huff. What's that series of valleys over there, he said. Hallmark, said Ford. We had a look. We didn't wake you earlier, said Trillian. The last planet was knee-deep in fish. Fish? Some people like the oddest things. And before that, said Ford, we had platinum, bit dull. We thought you'd like to see this one. Seas of light glared at them in one solid blaze wherever they looked. Very pretty, said Zaphod petulantly. In the sky, a huge green catalog number appeared. It flickered and changed, and when they looked around again, so had the land. as with one voice they all went, yuck. The sea was purple. The beach they were on was composed of tiny yellow and green pebbles, presumably terribly precious stones. The mountains in the distance seemed soft and undulated, and red peaks nearby stood a solid silver beach table with frilly mauve parasol and silver tassels. In the sky, the huge sign appeared, replacing the catalog number. It said, "Whatever your taste, Magrathea can cater for you. We are not proud." And 500 entirely naked women dropped out of the sky on parachutes. In a moment, the scene vanished and left them in a springtime meadow full of cows.
Ow, said Zaphod. My brain. You want to talk about it?
Said Ford.
Yeah, okay,
said Zaphod. And all three sat down and ignored the scenes that came and went around them.
I figured this,
said Zaphod.
Whatever happened to my mind, I did it. I did it in such a way that it wouldn't be detected by the government screening test, and I wasn't to know anything about it myself. Pretty crazy, right?
The other two just simply nodded in agreement.
So I reckon that what's so secret as I can't tell anybody that I know it, not the government, not even myself. And the answer is, I don't bloody well know. Obviously, but I put a few things together and I began to guess. When I decided to run for president shortly after the death of President Uden Vronks. You remember Uden, Ford?
Yeah, said Ford.
He was that guy we met when we were kids, that Octurian captain. He was a gas. He gave us all those conquerors. You busted your way into his mega freighter, said you were the most amazing kid he'd ever met.
What's all this about? Said Trillian.
Ancient history. When we were kids together at Beetlejuice, the Octurian mega freighters used to carry most of the bulky trade between the galactic center and the outlying regions, and the Betelgeuse trading scouts used to find the markets, and the Octurians would supply them, and there was a lot of trouble with space pirates before, and they were wiped out during the Dordillion Wars, and the mega freighters had to be equipped with the most fantastic defense shields known to galactic science. They were real brutes of ships and huge. In orbit around the planet, they would ellipse the sun. Well, one day, young Zaphod here decides to raid one on a tri-jet scooter designed for stratospheric work. A mere kid. I mean, forget it. It was the craziest set of it was crazier than a mad monkey. I went along for the ride because, hell, I got to get some of that safe money on him not being able to do it, and I didn't want him coming back with fake evidence. So what happens? We get on his tri-jet, which he then souped up into something totally other, crossed 3 parsecs in a matter of weeks, busted our way into that mega freighter. I still don't know how he did it. Marched onto the bridge waving toy pistols, demanding conquerors, and a wilder thing that I had not known, lost me a year's pocket money for what it's worth. Conquerors. Ugh. Yeah, the captain was a really amazing guy. Uden Vrox, said Zaphod. He gave us food and booze and stuff that really weird parts of the galaxy. Lots of conquerors, of course, and we had just the most incredible time. Then he teleported us back in the maximum security wing of the Beetlejuice State Prison. He was a cool guy, went on to become president of the galaxy.
Zaphod paused. The scene around them currently plunged into gloom. Dark mists swirled round them, and the elephantine shapes lurked indistinctly in the shadows. The air was occasionally rent with the sound of illusionary beings being murdering other illusionary beings. Presumably, enough people must have liked this sort of thing to make paying it a proposition.
Ford,
said Zaphod quietly.
Yeah? Just before Uden died, he came to see me. What? You never told me.
No.
What did he say? What did he come to see you about?
He told me about the heart of gold. It was his idea that I should steal it.
His idea?
Yeah, said Zaphod.
The only possible way of stealing it was to be at the launching ceremony.
Ford gaped at him in astonishment for a moment, and then roared with laughter.
Are you telling me that you set yourself up to become president of the galaxy just to steal a ship?
That's it, said Zaphod, with the sort of grin that would get most people locked away in a room with soft walls.
But why?
Said Ford.
What's so important about having you?
Don't know, said Zaphod. I think if I had consciously known what was so important about it, I don't know, man. I would have had a need for it. Wouldn't have had the need for it and showed up on the brain screen test, and I would never have passed. You think you'd told me a lot of things that are still, I don't know. I still think they're locked away up in there, man.
So, you think you went and mucked around inside your own brain as the results of you talking to you?
And he was a hell of a talker, man.
Yeah, but Zaphod, old mate, you want to look at yourself and, you know.
Zaphod just shrugged. I don't you have any inkling for the reason you did all this there, Zaphod thought hard. He thought about this and thought about that, and doubt seemed to cross his mind.
No, man, he said. I don't seem to be letting myself into any of my secrets still,
he added with further reflection.
I can understand that I wouldn't trust myself any further than I could spit on a rat, man.
A moment later, the last planet in the catalog vanished from beneath them, and the solid world resolved itself again. They were sitting in a plush waiting room, full of glass-top tables and designed awards. A tall Magrathian man was standing in front of them.
The mice will see you now,
he said. We're going to stop right there for just a moment. Swifty, thank you for the resub. Welcome back. Welcome in. 9 months. That, as they say, is a Twitch baby. You get to pick the name out, though. Chapter 30.
So there you have it,
said Slarty Bartfrost, making a feeble and perfunctory attempt to clear away some of the appalling mess of his study. He picked up a piece of paper from the top of a pile, but then couldn't think of anywhere else to put it, so he put it back on top of the original pile, which it promptly fell over.
Deep thought. Designed the earth, we built it, you lived on it.
And the Vogons came and destroyed it 5 minutes before the program completed, added Arthur, not bitterly.
Yes,
said the old man, pausing to gaze hopelessly around the room.
10 million years of planning and work gone just like that. 10 million years, Earthman. Can you conceive of the kind of time and span of space and time and a galactic civilization could grow from a single worm 5 times over in that time? Gone.
He paused.
Well, that's bureaucracy for you.
You know, said Arthur thoughtfully,
this explains a lot of things. All through my life, I've had this strange, unaccountable feeling that something was going on in the world, something big, even sinister, and no one would tell me what it was.
No,
said the old man.
That's just perfectly normal paranoia. Everyone in the universe has it.
Everyone, said Arthur.
Well, if everyone has it, perhaps it means something. Perhaps somewhere outside the universe we know.
Maybe. Who cares?
Slarty Bartfrost was cutting Arthur off before he got too excited.
Perhaps I'm old and tired. But I always think that the chances of finding out what is really going on out there are so absurdly remote that the only thing to do is to hang the sense of it and just keep yourself occupied. Look at me. I designed coastlines. I got an award for Norway.
He rummaged around in a pile of debris and pulled out a large plexiglass block with his name on it and a model of Norway molded onto it.
"Where's the sense in that?" he said. "None that I've ever been able to make out. I've been doing fjords all my life. For a fleeting moment they became fashionable, and I got a major reward."
He turned it over in his hands with a shrug, tossed it aside carelessly, but not so carelessly that it didn't land on something soft.
"In this place, Earthman, we're building. They've given me Africa to do, and of course I'm doing it with all the fjords again, because I happen to like them, and I'm old-fashioned enough to think that they give me a lovely Baroque feel to a continent. And they tell me it's not equatorial enough. Equatorial?
He gave a hollow little laugh.
What does it matter? Science has achieved some wonderful things, and of course I'd far rather be happy than right any day.
And are you?
No. That's where it all falls down, of course.
Pity, said Arthur with sympathy.
It sounded quite like a good lifestyle otherwise.
Somewhere on the wall, a small white light flashed.
Come,
said Slarty Bartfrost.
You're met to meet the mice. Your arrival on the planet has caused considerable excitement. It has already been hailed, so I gather, as the third most improbable event in the history of the universe.
What were the first two?
Oh, probably just coincidence,
said Slarty Bartfrost carelessly. He opened the door and stood waiting for Arthur to follow. Arthur glanced around him once more, and then down at himself, at the sweaty, disheveled clothes he had been lying in the mud in on Thursday morning.
I seem to be having tremendous difficulty with my lifestyle,
he muttered to himself.
I beg your pardon?
Asked the old man mildly.
Oh, nothing,
said Arthur.
Only joking.
Just when I thought I had all of my things turned off. All right. We are moving right along. Hello, kitty cat. I have a cat who's decided that sleeping in my lap right now is a fantastic thing to do. And I have been sitting on the... Let's at least put the right screen up. I don't think I made this... I don't think I made this challenge hard enough for you people. I don't think I made it hard enough at all. Next time, I'm like tripling the return results on that. All right. Chapter 31. It is, of course, well known that careless talk costs lives. But the full scale of the problem is not always appreciated. For instance, at the very moment Arthur said, I seem to be having tremendous difficulty with my lifestyle. A freak wormhole opened in the fabric of space-time continuum and carried his words far, far back in time across almost infinite reaches of space to a distant galaxy where strange, warlike beings were poised on the brink of a frightful interstellar battle. The two opposing leaders were meeting for the last time. A dreadful silence fell across the conference table as the commander of the Vluhergs, resplendent in his black jeweled battle shorts, gazed levelly at the Guguvnet leader. squatting opposite of him in a cloud of green, sweet-smelling steam. And with a million sleek and horribly beweaponed star cruiser poised to unleash electric death at his single word of command, challenged the vile creature to take back what he had said about his mother. The creature stirred in his sickly, broiling vapor, and at that very moment the words, "I seem to be having tremendous difficulty with my lifestyle," drifted across the conference table. Unfortunately, in the Vlurg tongue, this was the most dreadful insult imaginable, and there was nothing for it but to wage terrible war for centuries. Eventually, of course, their galaxy had been decimated over a few thousand of years. It was realized that the whole thing had been a ghastly mistake. And so the two opposing battle fleets settled their few remaining differences in order to launch a joint attack on our galaxy, now positively identified as the source of the offending remark. For thousands more years, the mighty ships tore across the empty waste of space and finally dived screaming on the first planet that they came across, which happened to be the Earth, where, due to a terrible miscalculation of size, the entire battle fleet was accidentally swallowed by a small dog. Those who study the complex interplay of cause and effect in the history of the universe say that this sort of thing is going on all the time, but that we are powerless to prevent it. It's just life, they say. A short air car trip brought Arthur and the old Magrathian to a doorway. They left the car, went through the door into a waiting room full of glass-top tables and plexiglass wards. Almost immediately, a light flashed above the door on the other side of the room, and they entered.
"Arthur, you're safe!" a voice cried.
"Am I?" said Arthur, rather startled. "Oh, good." The lighting was rather subdued, and it took him a moment or so to see Ford, Trillian, and Zaphod sitting round a large, beautifully decked out with exotic dishes. Sitting round a large table, beautifully decked out with exotic dishes, strange sweetmeats, and bizarre fruits. They were stuffing their faces.
"What happened to you?"
said Arthur.
"Well,"
said Zaphod, attacking a boneful of grilled mussels,
"our guests here have been gassing us and zapping our minds and just generally being weird, and have now given us a rather nice meal to make it up to us. And here, have some,"
he said, hoiking out a lump of evil-smelling meat from a bowl.
"Have some of this vegan rhino cutlet. It's delicious, man, if you happen to like that sort of thing, man."
"Hosts," said Arthur.
"What hosts? I don't see any."
Small voice.
"Welcome to lunch, Earth creature."
Arthur glanced around and suddenly yelped.
"Ugh! There are mice on the table."
There was an awkward silence as everyone looked pointedly at Arthur. He was busy staring at two white mice sitting in what looked like a whiskey glass on the table. He heard the silence, glanced around at everyone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't quite prepared for it."
"Let me introduce you," said Trillian. "Arthur, this is Benji Mouse." "Hi,"
said one of the mice. His whiskers stroked what must have been a touch-sensitive panel on the inside of the whiskey glass affair, and it moved forward slightly.
"And this is Frankie Mouse."
The other mouse said,
"Pleased to meet you,"
and did likewise. Arthur just gaped.
But aren't they? "Yes," said Trillian. "They are the mice I brought with me from Earth."
She looked at him in the eye, and Arthur thought he detected the tiniest resigned shrug.
Would you pass me that bowl of grated Octarian megadonkey?
She said. Slarty Bartfrost coughed politely.
Excuse me?
Yes, thank you, Slarty Bartfrost,
said Benji Mouse sharply.
You may now go.
Huh? What? Oh, very well.
Said the old man, slightly taken aback.
I'll just go get on with some of my fjords then.
Well, that won't be necessary,
said Frankie Mouse.
It looks very much as if we won't be needing a new Earth any longer.
He swiveled his pink little eyes.
Now that we found a native at the planet who was there seconds before it was destroyed.
What? You can't mean that I've got dozens of glaciers poised, ready to roll over Africa.
Well, perhaps you can take a quick skiing holiday before you dismantle them,
said Frankie acidly.
Skiing holiday? Those glaciers are works of art. Elegant sculpted contours, soaring pinnacles of ice, deep, majestic ravines. It would go to sacrilege to go skiing on high art.
Thank you, Slarty Bartfrost. That will be all.
Yes, sir,
said the old man coldly.
Thank you very much. Well, goodbye, Earthmen. Hope the lifestyle comes together.
With a brief nod to the rest of the company, he turned and walked sadly out of the room. Arthur stared after him, not knowing what to say.
Now,
said Benji.
to business.
Ford and Zaphod clinked their glasses together. To business! They said.
I beg your pardon,
said Benji. Ford looked around.
Sorry, I thought you were proposing a toast.
The two mice scuttled impatiently around in their glass transport. Finally, they composed themselves, and Benji moved forward to address Arthur.
Now, Earth creature,
he said.
The situation we have in effect is this. We have, as you know, been more or less running your planet for the last 10 billion years in order to find this wretched thing called the question to the ultimate answer.
Why?
Said Arthur.
No, we already tried that one. Why 42? See, it just doesn't work.
No, said Arthur. I mean, why have you been doing it?
Oh. Well, eventually, just habit, I think. To be brutally honest, there's more or less just the point. We're sick to the teeth of the whole thing, and the prospect of doing it all over again on account of those rennet-ridden variants, quite frankly, gives me the screaming heebie-jeebies. You know what I mean? I mean, just really, there's just the merest luckiest chance that Benji and I finished our particular job and left the planet early for the quick holiday and have since manipulated our way back to Magratia by good offices of your friends.
Magratia is a gateway back to our own dimension,
put in Benji.
Since then,
continued his murine colleague,
we have had to offer a quite enormous fat contract to the 5G chat show and lecture circuits back in our own dimension's neck of the woods, and we're very much inclined to take it.
I would, yeah. Wouldn't you, Ford?
Oh, yeah. Jump on it like a shot.
Arthur just glanced at him, wondering what all this was leading up to.
But we got to have product, you see. I mean, ideally, it'd still need the question to the ultimate answer in some form or another.
Zaphod leaned forward to Arthur.
You see,
he said,
if they just sitting there in the studio looking very relaxed and, just mentioning that they happen to know the answer to life, the universe, and everything, and then eventually have to admit to the fact that it's 42, and then the show's probably going to get quite short. Like, no follow-up, you see?
We have to have something that sounds good.
Something that sounds good? A question to the ultimate answer that sounds good from a couple of mice?
The mice bristled.
Well, I mean, yes, idealism, yes, the dignity of pure research, yes, the pursuit of truth in all its forms, and there comes a point, I'm afraid, where you begin to suspect that if there is any real truth, it's in the entire multidimensional infinity of the universe is almost certainly being run by a bunch of maniacs. And if it comes down to a choice between spending, yes, another 10 million years to finding that out, and on the other hand, just taking the money and running with it, then I, for one, could do with some exercise.
But yeah, man, you get this, Earthman. You are the last generation product of that computer matrix, right? You were there right up to the moment your planet got the finger, yeah? So, your brain was an organic part of the penultimate configuration of the computer program,
Said Ford, rather lucidly, he thought.
Right, man,
Said Zaphod.
Well,
Said Arthur doubtfully. He wasn't aware of having felt an organic part of anything. He's always seen this as one of his problems.
In other words,
Said Benji, steering his curious little vehicle right over to Arthur.
there's a good chance that the structure of the question is encoded in the structure of your brain. So we want to buy it off of you.
what? The question? Yeah,
Said Ford and Trillian.
for lots of money, man.
No, said Brinkley. It's the brain we want.
What?
Well, who would miss it?
I thought you said you could just read his brain electronically.
Oh, yeah. But we'd never get it. We'd have to get it out first. It's got to be prepared. Treated. Diced.
Thank you.
Shouted Arthur, tipping his chair and backing away from the table.
It could always be replicated. If you think it's important. Yes, an electronic brain,
Said Frankie.
a simple one would suffice.
A simple one? Yeah, man.
Said Zaphod with a suddenly evil grin.
You just have to have a problem and program it, right? What? It would say, what? And I don't understand. And where's the T? And who'd know the difference, man? What?
Cried Arthur, backing away still further.
See what I mean?
Said Zaphod, and howled with pain because of something that Trillian did at that moment.
I'd notice the difference,
Said Arthur.
No, you wouldn't. You'd be programmed not to.
Ford made for the door.
Look, I'm sorry, mice, old lads. I don't think we got a deal.
I'd rather think we have to have a deal,
Said the mice in chorus, all the charm vanishing from their piping little voices in an instant. With a tiny whining shriek, their two glass transports lifted themselves into the air, swung through the air towards Arthur, who stumbled further backwards into a blind corner, utterly unable to cope or think of anything. Trillian grabbed him desperately by the arm and tried to drag him towards the door, which Ford and Zaphod were struggling to open. But Arthur was dead weight. He seemed hypnotized by the airborne rodents swooping towards him. She screamed at him. He just gaped. With one more yank, Ford and Zaphod got the door open. On the other side of it was a small pack of rather ugly men, who they could only assume were the heavy mob of Magrathians. Not only were they ugly themselves, but the medical equipment they carried with them was also far from pretty. So Arthur was about to have his head cut open. Trillian was unable to help him, and Ford and Zaphod were about to be set upon by several thugs a great deal heavier and more sharply armed than they were. All in all, it was an extremely fortunate that at that moment every alarm on the planet burst into an ear-splitting din. We're going to take a moment right there. Good grief. It's all right. Spend all those points now. You won't have them for the next one. It's fantastic. All right. Yeah, we got looks like 3 more chapters. And we will be done with this book. Hi, Stuff It Boo. Welcome on in. Let's take a few moments to say hi to all of the fabulous people who have stopped in. I hope you're enjoying. I saw Mac Morvan. He said something earlier. Yes, 4T too. Yes, that's a very nice play on words. I enjoyed that very much. And Stuff It Boo is here also for the last of the book reading for this week. So I think this is probably going to be a very short stream because we do not have another hour's worth of story to read. So that is definitely going to be a thing. But we will make of it as we can. Not a spoiler anymore. Oh, you're not spoiling it for me. I've read this series of books so many times now. It's not even funny. There's nothing spoiling it for me. This was merely done at a request of I don't even own 50 Shades of Grey. So I don't know how I'm going to read that one. But somehow I don't think you want to hear me reading 50 Shades of Grey. Good night, Amakisha. Have yourself a wonderful evening. We are going to continue on to chapter 32 here very shortly. First time for Swifty Squirrel, huh? No, I don't know. Yes, it is the first time for her reading the books, or rather hearing the books. I think she's turned this particular stream into an audio book for her to knock out The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So. Yeah, this the book plays out very much so differently than the movie does, in certain key points. But I thought depending on which movie you watch, they're pretty good, and the TV shows were say pretty close to the story. But yes, the TV show is also germane You are correct on that, McMorphin. I think they stayed closer to the book in the TV shows than anything else. But I mean, this is a TV show; you got more time, so it makes it easier to stick closer to the works written in the book. But that aside, this is purely a lurking stream because Amakisha requested me to read her a book so that she could go to sleep listening to me in the evenings. So that's what we are here doing, is giving her something to fall asleep to. All right. Chapter 32. Emergency. Emergency. Blared the klaxons throughout the Magrathea. Hostile ship has landed on the planet. Armed intruders in Section 8A. Defense stations. Defense stations. The two mice sniffed irritably around the fragments of their glass transport where they lay shattered on the floor.
Damn nuisance,
muttered Frankie the mouse.
All the fuss over 2 pounds of earthling brains.
He scuttled round and about, and his pink eyes flashing, his fine white coat bristling with static.
The only thing I can think to do now,
said Benji, crouching and stroking his whiskers in thought,
is to try and fake a question and bet when it sounds plausible. Difficult,
said Frankie, he thought.
What about, what's yellow and dangerous?
Benji considered this for a second.
No good, no good. It doesn't fit the answer.
They sank into silence for a few seconds.
All right. What do you get if you multiply 6 times 7? No. Too literal, too factual. Wouldn't sustain punter's interest.
Again, they thought. Then Frankie said,
Here's a thought. How many roads must a man walk down? Now that sounds promising.
He rolled the phrase around a little bit.
Yes, that's excellent. It sounds very significant without actually tying you down to meaning anything at all. How many roads must a man walk down? 42. Excellent. That'll fox him. Oh, Frankie, baby, we're made. We got it made. We're going to be on top. Woo!
They performed a scampering dance in their excitement. Near them on the floor lay several rather ugly men who had been hit about the head with some heavy design awards. Half a mile away, 4 figures pounded up the corridor, looking for a way out. They emerged into a wide open plain computer bay. They glanced about wildly.
Which way you reckon, Zaphod?
And a wild guess, man. I'd say down here.
And said Zaphod, running off down to the right between computer banks and the wall. As the others started after him, he was brought up short by a kilozap energy bolt that crackled through the air inches in front of him and fried a small section of the adjacent wall. A voice on the bullhorn said,
Okay, Beaver Rocks, hold it right there. We've got you covered.
Cops, man.
hissed Zaphod, spun around in the crouch.
Do you want to try a guess at it, Ford?
Okay, this way,
said Ford, and the 4 of them ran down the gangway between 2 computer banks. At the end of the gangway appeared a heavily armored and spacesuited figure waving a vicious kilozap gun.
We don't want to shoot you, Beetlebox.
Suits me fine,
said Zaphod back, and dived down a wide gap between 2 data processing units. The others swerved in behind him.
There are 2 of them. We're cornered.
They squeezed themselves down in an angle between a large computer data bank and the wall. They held their breath and waited. Suddenly, the air exploded with energy bolts. as both cops opened fire on them simultaneously.
Hey, they're shooting at us,
Said Arthur, crouched in a tight ball.
I thought they said they didn't want to do that. Yeah, I thought they said that too.
Zaphod stuck a head up for a dangerous moment.
Hey, I thought you said you didn't want to shoot us, man.
And unducked again. They waited. After a moment, a voice replied.
It isn't that easy being a cop.
What did it say?
He said, it ain't easy being a cop.
Well, sure, that's his problem, isn't it?
I'd have thought so.
Hey, listen. I think we got enough problems of our own having you shooting at us. If it's all right with you, if you just avoid loading your problems on us as well, I think we'd all find it much easier, man.
Another pause, and then the bullhorn again.
Now see here, guys. You're not dealing with any dumb two-bit trigger-pumping morons with a hairline, little piggy eyes, and no conversation. We're a couple of intelligent, caring guys that you'd probably quite like if you got to meet us socially. I don't go around gratuitously shooting people then bragging about it afterwards in seedy Space Ranger bars. Like some cops I could mention. I go around shooting people gratuitously and then I agonize about it afterwards. It's 4 hours to my girlfriend. Yeah, I'm getting right nervous,
Chimed in the other cop.
Though I haven't had any time to finish publishing them yet, so I better warn you, I'm in a mean mood.
Ford's eyes popped halfway out of their sockets.
Who are these guys?
He said.
Dunno,
Said Zaphod.
I think I preferred it better when they were just shooting at us, man.
So, are you gonna come quietly?
Shouted one of the cops again.
Or are you gonna let us blast you?
Well, which would you prefer?
A millisecond later, the air above them started to fry again as bolts after bolts of the kilozap hurled itself into the computer banks in front of them. The fusillade continued for several seconds at unbearably intensity. When it stopped, there was a few seconds of near quietness as the echoes died away.
You still there?
Called one of the cops.
Yes.
They called back.
We didn't enjoy doing that at all.
We could tell.
Now listen to this, Beetlebacks, and you better listen good.
Why, man?
Because it's going to be very intelligent and quite interesting and humane. Now, either you give yourself up now and let us beat you up a bit, though not very much, of course, because we are firmly opposed to needless violence, or we blow this entire planet and possibly 2 or 3 others we notice on our way here up.
But that's crazy,
Cried Trillion.
You wouldn't do that.
Oh, yes, we will. Wouldn't we? Oh, yes, we'd almost have to. No question, no question.
But why?
Because there are some things you just have to do, even if you're an enlightened liberal cop who knows all about sensitivity and everything.
I just don't believe these guys.
Murmured Ford, shaking his head. One cop shouted to the other.
Shall we shoot them again for a bit? Yeah, why not?
And they let fly another electric barrage. The heat and the noise was quite fantastic. Slowly, the computer bank was beginning to disintegrate. The front had almost melted away, and thick rivulets of molten metal were winding their way back towards where they were squatted. They huddled further back and waited for the end.
Kitty, you're not helping me with this.
And nice to see you too. And welcome on in, Wars. Now, well, I picked up the kitty because she was pestering Mommy. And so she's been in here during this whole reading. So there you go. All right. Chapter 33. But the end never came, or at least not then. Quite suddenly, the barrage stopped, and the sudden silence afterwards was punctuated by a couple of strangled gurgles and thuds. The four stared at each other. "What happened?" said Arthur.
They stopped,
said Zaphod with a shrug.
Why?
Dunno, but you want to go out and ask them yet?
No.
They waited.
Hello?
Called out Ford. No answer.
That's odd.
Perhaps it's a trap. They ain't got the wit.
What were those thuds? Dunno.
They waited for a few more seconds.
Right,
Said Ford.
I'm going to have a look.
He glanced around at the others.
Is no one going to say, no, you can't possibly let me go instead?
They all shook their head.
Oh, well,
He said, and stood up. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, after a second or so, nothing continued to happen. Ford peered through the thick smoke that was billowing out of the burning computer. Cautiously, he stepped out into the open. Still, nothing happened. 20 yards away, he could dimly see through the smoke the spacesuit figures of one of the cops. He was lying in a crumpled heap on the ground. 20 yards in the other direction lay the second man. No one else was anywhere to be seen. This struck Ford as being extremely odd. Slowly, nervously, he walked towards the first one. The body lay reassuringly still as he approached it, and continued to lie reassuringly still as he reached out and put his foot down on the kilozap gun that still dangled limply from its fingers. He reached down and picked it up, meeting no resistance. The cop was quite clearly dead. A quick examination revealed him to be from the Blogulian Kappa. He was a methane-breathing life form, dependent on his spacesuit for survival in the thin oxygen atmosphere of Magrathea. The tiny life support system computer on the back of his backpack appeared to unexpectedly have blown up. Ford poked around it in considerable astonishment. These miniature suit computers usually had a full backup. Had the full backup of the main computer back on the ship, with which they were directly linked through the sub-ether. Such a system was fail-safe in all circumstances other than total feedback malfunction, which was completely unheard of. He hurried over to the prone figure and discovered that exactly the same impossible thing had happened to him. Presumably simultaneous. He called to the others over to have a look. They came and shared his astonishment, but not his curiosity.
let's get the shot out of this hole, man,
said Zaphod.
If whatever I'm supposed to be looking for is here, I don't want it.
He grabbed the second kilozap gun, blasted a perfectly harmless accounting computer, and rushed out and into the corridor. Followed by the others, he very nearly blasted hell out of an air car that stood waiting for them a few yards away. The air car was empty, but Arthur recognized it as belonging to Slarty Bertfast. It had a note from him pinned to part of the sparse instrument panel. The note had an arrow drawn on it, pointing at one of the controls. It said, This is probably the best button to press. Which is probably my favorite line of any instruction manual when it comes down to how to operate something. Sorry. Little anecdotal as we break from chapter 33 to chapter 34. The air car rocketed them at speeds in excess of R-17 through the steel tunnels that led on to the appalling surface of the planet, which was now in the grip of yet another near dreary morning twilight. Ghastly gray light congealed on the land. R is a velocity measure defined as a reasonable speed of travel that is consistent with health, mental well-being, and not being more than, say, 5 minutes late. It is therefore clearly an almost infinitely variable figure according to circumstances, since the first two factors vary not only with speed taken as an absolute, but also with the awareness of the third factor. Unless handled with tranquility, this equation can result in considerable stress, ulcers, and even death. R-17 is not a fixed velocity, but it is clearly far, far, far too fast. The air car flung itself through the air at R-17, and above, deposited him next to the heart of gold, which stood starkly on the frozen ground like a bleached bone, and then precipitately hurled itself back in the direction whence it had come, presumably on important business of its own. Shivering, the four of them stood and looked at the ship. Beside it stood another one. It was the Blagolian Kappa police craft, a bulbous, shark-like affair, slate green in color and smothered with black stenciled letters of varying degree of size and unfriendliness. The letters informed anyone who cared to read them as to where the ship was from, what section of the police it was assigned to, and where the power feeds should be connected. It seemed somehow unnaturally dark and silent, even for a ship whose two-man crew was at the moment lying asphyxiated in a smoke-filled chamber several miles beneath the ground. It is one of those curious things that is impossible to explain or define, but one can sense when a ship is completely dead. Ford could sense it and found it most mysterious. A ship and two policemen seemed to have gone spontaneously dead. In his experience, the universe simply just did not work that way. The other three could sense it too, but they could sense the bitter cold even more and hurried back into the heart of Golds, suffering from an acute attack of no curiosity. Ford stayed and went to examine the Blagulian ship. As he walked, he nearly tripped over an inert steel figure lying face down in the cold dust.
"Marvin!" he exclaimed. "What are you doing?"
Don't feel you have to take any notice of me.
Came a muffled drone.
"But how are you, Metal Man?"
I'm very depressed.
"What's up?"
I don't know. I've never been here before.
"Why? Why are you lying face down in the dust?"
It's a very effective way of being wretched. Don't pretend you want to talk to me. I know you hate me.
"No, I don't."
Yes, you do. Everybody does. It's part of the shape of the universe. I only have to talk to somebody and they begin to hate me. Even robots hate me. If you just ignore me, I expect I should probably just go away.
He jacked himself up to his feet, stood resolutely facing the opposite direction.
That ship hates me,
he said dejectedly, indicating the police craft.
"That ship,"
said Ford in sudden excitement.
"what happened to it? Do you know?"
It hated me because I talked to it.
You talked to it? What do you mean you talked to it?
Simple. I got very bored and depressed, and so I went and plugged myself into its external computer feed. I talked to the computer at great length and explained my view and the view of the universe to it. Oh.
And what happened?
It committed suicide.
And Marvin stalked off back to the Heart of Gold. Sorry. Chapter 35. That night, as the Heart of Gold was busy putting a few light years between itself and the Horsehead Nebula, Zaphod lounged under the small palm tree on the bridge, trying to bang his brains into shape with a massive pan-galactic gargle blaster. Ford and Trillian sat in a corner discussing life and matters arising from it, and Arthur took to his bed to flip through Ford's copy of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Since he was going to have to live in a place, he reasoned he'd better start finding out something about it. He came across the entry. It said, "The history of every major galactic civilization tends to pass through three distinct and recognizable phases. Those of survival, inquiry, and sophistication, otherwise known as the how, why, and where phases. For instance, the first phase is characterized by the question, how can we eat? The second by the question, why do we eat? And the third by the question, where shall we have lunch?" He got no further before the ship's intercom buzzed to life.
Hey, Earthman, you hungry?
Well, yes. A little peckish, I suppose.
Okay, baby, hold tight. We're going to take a quick bite at the restaurant at the end of the universe.
And that is the end of your book. That brings us to the conclusion of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I hope you guys have enjoyed your reading, and I hope that you guys have had generally a good time. We are going to end a little early since we are out of book to read. There's about 15 minutes left, 45 minutes left into the stream, but we're just going to go ahead and read out. It was a short read tonight, but that was the end of the book. I see we have a couple of friends out there. I see Cerberus is out there on some Valheiming, so we'll go ahead and read out to him, so just hang tight. I'm going to throw up the ending screen. I hope you all have enjoyed the book. Can't wait to hear 50 Shades of Grey. We'll see. I don't have the book, so that one's going to be a little hard to do, but we'll see. We'll see. In any case, hang tight and watch your ears. All right. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this journey through The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It has been my pleasure to read it to you guys. We are going to go say hi to our fellow friend and fellow Denmarkian DM service official who is currently right now on the server doing things. I will be back here again tomorrow evening for probably some more continuation of Spider-Man or maybe something else. Who knows? We'll see what we get up to. But it's not going to be Minecraft. Our Minecraft Mondays have been paused for the foreseeable future for right now. So we'll see what happens next. But until then, take care. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And for those of you starting your week, I hope that you get started on a good foot. We'll take care. We'll see you next time. Bye now.